Hello, and welcome to School to Homeschool. My name is Janae Daniels. I'm a wife, a mother of 6, and a former middle school teacher turned homeschool mom. I have kids ranging in ages adult all the way down to elementary school and everything in between. Are you thinking about pulling your kids from the public school system like I did, but you are scared to death and don't know what to do next? My friends, I felt the exact same way, and you have come to the right place. I want to help your family leave the system so that you can take the hearts and minds of your children back. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I hope everyone had a fabulous Thanksgiving, that it wasn't too stressful and you didn't have too many tears, as you most likely, as the moms, took care of everything. Let's be honest. Super excited to talk today. I want to just jump right in and talk about preparing for Christmas rituals and traditions, because I wanted to do something kind of Christmassy, but also Christmas tends to be very stressful for most families, just like at the end of the year in May, for a lot of school kids, that is a stressful time of year because we as moms volunteer for everything and end up doing a lot. And I feel like Christmas is the same when it's supposed to be this beautiful time of year, and it ends up being really stressful for a lot of parents. And for those of you who've pulled your kids and this is your first Christmas as a homeschool family, there's some really cool rituals that you can do that will bring you together, closer together, and some things that you need to expect as a mom that you're going to feel. For example, or experience, I guess I should say. For example, the first year that we started homeschooling 3.5 years ago, I realized that suddenly my time to buy Christmas presents while my kids were at school no longer existed. And so I had to get creative about when I would go Christmas shopping. Jeff Bezos became my best friend, and I started utilizing Amazon at that point. But I had to figure things out. As well as when do I wrap Christmas presents, which led me into making gift bags that I could just throw the presents in and then pull the drawstring, which my kids don't necessarily love, but saved me time. So let's jump into traditions and rituals. I want to pull from the book, The Intentional Family. It's a great book about creating family traditions and rituals. So this is what they describe. I think the term ritual has kind of bad connotations. When I hear the term ritual, I think of like horror movies and like socially engineered priests from Hollywood who they try to make look evil, which always bothers me, by the way, whenever they try to make religious people look evil in the films, which I guess that justifies their own personal feelings. But anyway, that's beside the point. I want to talk about rituals are in this book, The Intentional Families. It says simple rituals to strengthen family ties by Dr. William J. Doherty. And he says here, family rituals are repeated and coordinated activities that have significance for the family. To be a ritual, the activity has to have meaning or significance. Otherwise, it's a routine, but it's not a ritual. To be a ritual, then, the activity must be repeated. An occasional unplanned trip to a cabin would not make for a family ritual, whereas an annual trip that family members look forward to would. And finally, a ritual activity must be coordinated. So he talks about the 4 important things that rituals do for our families as we are trying to create intentional families. The first thing is it gives a predictability, a sense of regularity and order that families require, especially those with children. Connection. The bedtime ritual may be the primary one-to-one time shared between a father and his child. For couples, bedtime rituals may also be important time to connect emotionally and perhaps sexually after a busy, distracted day. It goes on. Identity, a sense of who belongs to the family and what is special about the family. That identity becomes really important for children. And there's this really cool article, and maybe I'll expound on it another podcast, but there's this cool article that was done by the New York Times many years ago that they found that children who knew about their ancestors and had a strong family connection also maintained a very strong identity, and their ability to be resilient increased. Anyway, I've got to find that article and probably share it in a podcast. It's really fascinating. And then the 4th thing is a way to enact value. So rituals help that values demonstrate what we believe and hold dear. And they say religious rituals are a good example, as is a family volunteering together for community work or ensuring that children join in regular family visits to a grandparent in a nursing home, thereby teaching that it's important to honor and support this elderly family member. So let's talk a little bit about some rituals that we've done in our family, the ones that have served us and the ones that I've had to let go of. We also call these traditions, right? And I think there's that I loved how it talked about identity in the book, that it helps foster a very strong identity for children. And they need that. And even teenagers need that. Even my boys, my older boys get nostalgic about old things that we've done. And as we've discussed, family traditions and family rituals that we've done over the years. So with that, I want to caution that if you do decide to start a tradition in your family, make sure it's something that you want to keep doing long term versus it's a one and done type of thing. We're just trying it out. And I say that because about 4 years ago at Halloween, I got this grandiose idea because I was a theater major and I taught theater, that I wanted our trick-or-treating house, like I wanted our house to be like a cool place to come trick-or-treating. And we have this courtyard in our house with some beams across it. And so I strung up candy and then made a sign that said the leaky cauldron, like from Harry Potter. And then I strung up full-size candy bars, which by the way, got really expensive really fast, strung them up, and they were attached by clips, like little clothespins. And then I made butterbeer, which is not actually beer. It's like what you get at Hollywood Studios. And it's like the hot butterscotch drink. And I found a copycat recipe online. So that's what I decided to do. And so as everyone was coming, the trick-or-treaters were coming, I was like, welcome to the Leaky Cauldron. And I had Harry Potter music blasting. So they felt like they were in an immersive experience. And it was awesome. And I was exhausted by the end of the night. And we had a lot of trick-or-treaters come. Well, the next year was COVID. But the regulations for our state had been pretty lifted by October. And I decided that once again, maybe it was 5 years ago I started this. Anyway, I decided once again we were going to do it again. So we did it again. The next year it fell on a Sunday, and my family doesn't trick or treat on Sunday. We don't hand out candy. So I posted in the neighborhood, Facebook page that we're going to do it on Saturday instead. And then I did again. So as we've done this every year, and it's become more and more popular in our neighborhood, and we have people who religiously come to our house, and then they'll stay for a few minutes and sit and chat, and then they'll head out. But this year, my friends, I was so tired. I was so exhausted. I'd had a long, long week. We're moving out of our office, and actually we're moving out this week. But I started the packing process of our very big office space, and we've been in there a long, long time. We're moving to a new office. And I told my husband, like, I cannot do this tradition again. And I know that people in the neighborhood love it, but I just physically, I can't do it. Until my 7-year-old said to me, and this is probably 2 days before Halloween, my 7-year-old said to me, she's like, you know what my very favorite thing about Halloween is, Mom? And I said, what's that, baby? And I know not all of you celebrate Halloween, and that's whatever. It's good. But I said, what's your favorite thing about Halloween? She goes, I said, is it the trick-or-treating? You love getting all the candy? She goes, no. I love when we do the Harry Potter thing in our courtyard and you say, catch the candy before it flies away. Hurry, hurry, get your candy. And I love when you make butterbeer. And I love when the music is playing. I love it more than trick-or-treating. So I'm like, garbage. I have to do it now. Like, I can't just stop. And I realized that when we started this, she was really little. So she doesn't remember us not doing it because we used to be really boring. Like, we were the Tootsie Roll people, the garbage candy people who gave out like the cheapest candy possible. And, but I want to do something anyway, so so I did it. I did it again. And of course, people in the neighborhood were like, "Oh, we love coming to your house. It's so great. It's so fun. So thank you for doing this." And of course, my daughter, my 7-year-old, wanted to go trick-or-treating as fast as possible so she could come back and help hang up the candy as trick-or-treaters would pull it down. She'd put up new ones. And she wanted to help with that. And she wanted to pour the butterbeer, and she wanted to, do all of this stuff. And that's going to be her memory for the rest of her life, is that this is what we did. And I loved it. And everyone in the family helped, put the candy up or made butterbeer, and we had chili in the kitchen cooking. And so that people could, our family could eat as people took turns hanging back up the candy. And I thought, okay, I've done it. Now I can't quit, right? Now that it's something that we've done long term, even though I was tired, I realized that's something I can't quit because it means so much to my kids. It still means a lot to my teenagers. Like, they came back quickly. They went out with the littles and they came back quickly because they wanted to help. They were excited about it. Their friends came over even, and so to help. So it's kind of a big deal. So I caution you, as you start traditions and rituals, get rid of the ones that don't serve you and keep the ones that do. So with that, let's talk about some Christmas traditions and rituals that we may want to adopt, and some that we might want to get, that you could get rid of. And I want you to be thinking about that, because I don't know what your traditions are. I don't know what your rituals are that you do around Christmas time. There's some that I've had to let go of. I always felt like, oh, we've got to do like Christmas vacation. Like, we have to do the gingerbread house making, and we have to go sledding, and we have to, do Christmas cookies, and we have to go caroling. We have to do all of these things. Like Clark Griswold, he felt like he had to do all these things. And I found that having that expectation on myself ended up causing more anxiety and stress during a season that's already full of anxiety and stress. I do have to say, not going to a million Christmas concerts with the public school system was awesome. I did not miss that at all. It was replaced by a couple of enrichment activities where they performed, but it wasn't nearly the stress that I felt with, like, oh my gosh, we have to go to band, and then we have to go to orchestra, and then we have to go to the choir concert, and then we have to go to this concert, and then we have the football banquet, and we have the volleyball banquet, and we have all the banquets, right? It was a great relief to me to get rid of all of that. And that was something that I really appreciated. As we also started homeschooling, I realized that, like, with Christmas cookies, I gain weight and I eat them all, and my kids might eat a little bit, but they like to decorate them. But then, we could take them to families, but then I found that we get all of these Christmas cookies from other families, and the sugar high just made me sick to my stomach. And I'm like, do we need to give other people Christmas cookies? Could we do something else for our neighbors and our friends other than sweet treats? What if I had a family that every year they bring us a pomegranate with this beautiful poem attached about the pomegranate, because nobody ever gets pomegranates, or very few, like, we didn't eat pomegranates all the time. I thought that was a really cool gift. And so I'm like, okay, so what if we let go of always having this need to do Christmas cookies? What if we let go of that we have to do gingerbread houses? Or what if, instead of all of the kids making their own little tiny graham cracker gingerbread house, we just made one? Or what if we didn't do it at all? Would anybody miss it? Probably not. So I started having to let go of things that weren't serving me. One thing that when I very first got married, I felt this, as those of you who are new to the podcast, I have 6 children. My oldest 2 are my stepkids, but their biological mom left when they were little. Like, we're talking a year and a half and 3.5. And I raised them. When my husband and I met, I took on 2 boys. I became their mom. I raised these boys. So I became an instant mom. And when we got married, they were 4 and 7. And that first, I guess it was our first official Christmas together. We were engaged. We got married in January. So We had Christmas together that first year. I stayed with his family, and anyway, because we wanted to make sure everything was appropriate. And we had Christmas with my husband's family. My family all lives everywhere. The following year, however, we decided to do Christmas with my family, and we didn't have much money at the time. And I had been thinking about like, how are we going to do Christmases with the boys? I remember when I was single, spending some time with my brother and his family when they were little kids. Now they're all grown and have kids of their own. But when they were little, and one of the kids would always start crying when all the presents were open. They're like, there's no more presents. And they'd have to warn them. They're like, you only have one present left. And so don't cry that there's not more to open. And then he'd open the present, and then he'd start to cry. And he was little, and he wanted to open more presents. And that stuck with me when I was single. I thought, what could you do to avoid that situation where kids cry because they don't have more to open? What could be done? And someone had mentioned, I don't remember who it was, had mentioned, well, baby Jesus only got 3 presents. So do kids really need more than 3 presents? Like, really? And that kind of stuck with me. So anyway, our first official year as married, we had Christmas with my family, and we all came together, and we were all going to have Christmas at my parents' house, and everyone. And I have 6 siblings. Sorry, I have 7. There's 8 of us. I have 7 siblings. I have 6 sisters, 1 brother. Sorry, 7 siblings. And so we all came together, and we all took a corner of the house to have Christmas. Now, my sister and I had the littlest kids. A lot of them had adult kids, or older kids, or teenagers, or young adults. And so they're like, we'll take, this corner of the house for our Christmas. And why don't, you and my little sister took the Christmas tree, because we had little kids, and we hung our stockings up, whereas everyone else put their stockings, by their stuff, because they had older kids and it didn't matter as much. So my younger sister took out a loan, and she had kids about the same age as my stepkids, and took out a loan for Christmas and bought them just so much stuff. I mean, we're talking, it extended to half the living room stuff. I mean, Xbox and games and toys, and you name the toy, they bought it for their kids. And my husband had been really sick. He's in real estate. It had been a hard year. That year, he had been in the hospital. And so we were limited on money at the time. And he's self-employed. And so we had budgeted, it was like $35 per child. Maybe it was $50 per child. And I was expecting, and we just didn't have it. And there was no way I was going to take out a loan for toys that would become junk. There's no way on this earth I was going to do that. And so I said to my husband, I said, well, I heard this thing when only baby Jesus only got 3 presents. It's fine if we just get some simple presents for the kids. We'll have 1 present from Santa, 1 present from you and I, and then the boys can each give each other a simple present, and we'll call it good. And in the stocking, we'll keep it pretty simple in their stockings. And so we got them each a can of Pringles, and we got them each a box of candy, and then put a couple of chocolates in an orange. And that was it. Like, it was pretty little. So Christmas morning rolls around, and I remember I bought my 4-year-old this abominable snowman figurine that was like $10. And he saw it in the store, and he's like, oh my goodness, that is amazing. So that's what we got him, and this little airplane. And again, I think we ended up saving money, because we ended up only spending like total $50 or $40 for both of the kids. And my other son, we got him just a simple game and something else. And that's really like, we just couldn't afford a lot. And then they gave each other a little present. We took them to the store and helped them purchase a present for one another. And so Christmas morning rolls around, and my kids very slowly open their 3 gifts that they got. And we told them, we're like, baby Jesus only got 3 presents. Oh, you only get 3 presents. You're not better than baby Jesus. Okay. And I said, and other people might get more presents, but that's up to their mom and dad. We told Santa 1 present for you. One, and we made a rule too, like no electronics, like, and that's just kind of what we did. So my sister's kids open all of their presents and it takes them forever. And they end up actually finishing the same time that my kids, very, like I said, very slowly unwrapped their presents. And her kids just zipped through them and tore into all the presents. And they got everything you could ever imagine. Everything that a child would want at that year, they got. And one of the boys looks at my son who's just holding this abominable snowman, this little plastic figurine, to his heart. And he's like, I love it so much. And he looks and he says to my sister, how come they got the good presents and we got the bad presents? And my sister lost it. She went upstairs and she just started sobbing. And she's like, and I went up and I talked to her and she's like, I don't understand. I'm so angry. I'm so frustrated. And I talked to her about how, I was like, look, the other thing is my kids' therapist, because their mom left, so we had them in therapy. I said one of the things that therapist said was the more gifts and things that a child has, the more overwhelming it becomes to them psychologically, and then they don't want to play with anything. That notion of clutter. I mean, that's how we are as adults, right? We have too much clutter in our home. It kind of debilitates us, and we're not able to do what we need to do when we have too much stuff. Like we're suffocated by our stuff. Kids are no different, whether it's they've got too many clothes or too many toys, too much stuff, it overwhelms them. And so they end up not playing with anything. And so I talked to her about that. And I also talked to her about baby Jesus. And she's like, and I need to work with my kids about gratitude and all this stuff. And I'm like, they're kids, they'll learn. You're doing your best. Don't take out a loan to buy presents. We had that discussion, right? She never did that again. And the next year she called me and she said, I'm doing it. And I said, what's that? She was like, they get 3 presents, 1 from us, 1 from Santa, 1 from each other. Then we're done. So that's what she did. And guess what? The kids were so much more grateful for the presents that they got, the very simple 3 little things that they got. And she didn't break the bank, and she didn't have to break the bank. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about was like gift giving, that sometimes if we give less, number one, it's less stressful for us to go, I need to buy more for them. It helps us financially. It helps us emotionally. And so if you can give less, it helps things. It alleviates stress. And then planning ahead, like, okay, they get these 3 things. My good friend, the children get a tool of some sort. That's real. So if she's going to give her kids a whittling kit, it's going to be a real whittling kit. And it's something that they can do, which I think is really cool. On Christmas morning, kids want to be able to play with their toys or do something. And so it means more like 1 year for my daughter, actually it was last year, I got her a box of Prismacolor markers because she loves art. And she had a really small set, but it was limited on the amount of colors that she had. And though she can mix the colors to some degree, it's markers, so it's not quite like paints. So I bought her that tool, taking that nod from Nicole, and she loved it. And she uses them on a daily basis. And she immediately, Christmas morning, she was ready to start drawing. And so if we can give our kids real tools that they can use to create, it also helps spark joy and creativity and all that fun stuff. So that's one thing. That's one thing in the Daniels family that we do is they get 3 presents. Now, I do have my 16-year-old loves, like one of his big love languages is gift giving and receiving gifts. And so he's always been like, Mom, I know we only get 3 presents and I still want to buy my siblings each a little present, like that my kids will draw a name as opposed to, and they'll give that one person like a big present, and we help the little kids with the with the quote big present. But then they all decided together that they wanted to give to each other. But their person that they drew that would get the big present, the others would get something smaller. For example, my little Jacob, who's 11, one year gave his sister a little book light because she loves to read. And so he just found this cute little, $3 book light for her because he didn't have her name, but he did want to get her something that would mean something to her. And so even though technically we're like, you get 3 presents, they still give a little things to each other, or they'll make each other something tender and sweet. My daughter makes these little pillows and embroiders them for her siblings and does cool things like that. And so that's tender to watch them give to each other, but they know like there's 3 presents. Once the presents are gone, nobody cries. Everyone got the same amount and it's all good. And it's all good. So that's one thing that we do. One of the traditions that we had that was not serving me was I'd stay up late Christmas Eve and try to like make breads that we'd bake in the morning and orange rolls and cinnamon rolls. And I would stay up so late and I was so exhausted that I didn't enjoy Christmas morning as much. Or I tried to make a big breakfast for Christmas morning. And then my husband's family would all come over for Christmas Day. And I had already cooked the night before to bring stuff to the family thing the night before. And it became way too much for me. And then I had this realization, like, why do we have to have 3 big meals? I'm the one cooking them all, and I want to enjoy Christmas too. And I had heard about a person who said, oh, for Christmas, I just do a box of cereal per child for Christmas morning. And we don't eat a lot of sugar cereal in our family. I mean, all cereal has a lot of sugar in it, but we don't we're talking the junk cereal. I just don't buy it because that's all they'd eat. And so I just don't buy it. But I do buy corn checks and call it good. But for Christmas morning, rather than cooking, what I do is I get them each a box of cereal. I put their name on it with a permanent marker. I set the table beautiful the night before. And then when everyone goes to bed, I put out the boxes of cereal in each person's place. In our family, everyone has a certain place that they sit around the table. It's not really assigned seats. It just kind of happened and it still is that way. And we've been married, almost 20 years, but we're going on 18 years this year. And, but my kids love it. And I asked Jacob, I said, what's your favorite tradition that we have in our family for Christmas? And he said, the cereal. I love that I get my own box of sugary garbage cereal. I love it. I get it once a year and I love it. And they'll eat it for weeks. They won't eat it all in one sitting. It'll last us, 2 or 3 weeks, and they'll eat their box and no one's allowed to eat their box of cereal except for them. And they love it. And I don't have to cook in the morning. And it's awesome because I want to enjoy Christmas too. Another thing that we switched last year was up until a few years ago, we would go to my husband's house for Christmas Eve. And then my mother-in-law started getting more and more sick. And there was no way that I was going to host Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And so we decided, and my family lives far away anyway, so that's not a big deal. We've worked that out. We just do Christmas in Colorado. We don't go all over the country generally. But we worked it out that Christmas Eve, everybody would just do it with their own little families. Or with extended family or whatever. We'd worked it out with all the extended families. And so this is a few years ago. So I was cooking a big Christmas dinner, and then I was a Christmas Eve dinner, and then I was cooking a big Christmas Day dinner. And I was exhausted and it was expensive. And I'd cook all day, and then everyone would eat it in 5 minutes and then be done. And then we'd go and read the nativity story, and they'd open their pajamas and go to bed. And I felt like I got the shaft. So we made a couple of changes. First of all, my boys informed me they don't like wearing pajamas to bed. They like wearing their snuggy sweatshirts, and that's all they wear, and they don't want any more pajamas. So I'm like, okay, well, let's eliminate that. Right. So I stopped buying Christmas pajamas for the night before. My daughter this year said, can I have a set of Christmas pajamas that I wear all December until Christmas? And I'm like, yes, you can. So I bought her a pair of Christmas pajamas this week. She's been wearing them every night this week. So eliminated that. I instead said, you're going to get a book for Christmas Eve as your Christmas Eve, gift, or we won't do a gift. And that works too. But for Christmas Eve, I had this realization. I talked to my kids. I was talking to my kids' French tutor that they went to a little French tutor once a week last year before she stopped tutoring. And I said, what do you do for Christmas Eve? Because I'm trying to figure this out. And she said, oh, well, I grew up in Switzerland. My dad's American. My mother is Swiss. And we would get a raclette, however you want to say it, RACLETTE, which is like this grill you put on the table, and then underneath it holds cheeses, and it's like a form of fondue, and we'd have the fondue pots and have cheese and chocolate, and then we do the raclette, and we'd all cook our meat together. And I thought that probably I asked her, that probably takes a while, and she's like, oh yeah, no, it takes us like an hour and a half, 2 hours to eat, because we all have to cook our food on the grill. We all have our fondue forks, and we have different courses and everything. So I thought, I'm going to do that. So I invested the money and bought a raclette. And I already had 2 fondue pots. So I made a cheese fondue, and then I put the raclette on, and I prepped the meats and I prepped the sides, and it took me like an hour, maybe tops, to prep everything. I did have to boil some potatoes. And for dinner, I said, this is what we're going to do for Christmas Eve dinner. You're going to cook your own food, and we're going to sit and talk before we read the nativity story and before everyone goes to bed. We're going to talk over a long dinner. And guess what? Everyone except for my husband loved it, and he dealt with it. And he's like, it's fine. I don't love cooking my own food. I'm like, well, tough toenails. Get over it. Right. But the kids loved it. My adult son loved it. My other adult son is married, so we got that going on. So he wasn't with us. But they loved it. They loved cooking. And my kids said, can we do this every week? And I said, no. We can do it a couple times a year, but this is our new Christmas tradition. And they brought it up again this week. They're like, we're so excited to do the raclette for Christmas dinner. We're so excited. And I don't have to prep everything by myself. Like, I do the prep work, but the kids help cut up and everything, but I don't have to cook everything. I don't. And by the way, there's less dishes. It's amazing. And like, we would do like 1 chicken breast cut into 7 pieces, 1 steak cut into 7 pieces, 1 shrimp for every person. Like, and it actually ended up costing us less in dinner. Anyway, so that's a fun idea for you for Christmas dinner. Now, my personal favorite tradition is for Christmas, and it was born out of something that hurt my feelings initially. And that is early on in our marriage. It was our 3rd year of marriage. My husband hadn't gone Christmas shopping for me at all. And Christmas Eve rolled around, and he said, I have to go Christmas shopping for you. And I'm like, you haven't gotten anything for me at all? Like, I had already gotten everything for everybody. And he's like, no, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I need to be honest with you. So I'm going to take the kids with me, and we're going to go to some stores and pick up some things for you. And he left. He took all the kids and he left, and I cried my eyes out. I'm like, and I was feeling sorry for myself already, because I was cooking to take stuff to his family for that night. And I just cried. I'm like, he doesn't even care about me and all these things. And then like 12 o'clock rolls around. So he left like at 8:30, 9. He said, I'm going to take the kids to breakfast first, and then we're going to get shop for you. And then as soon as we're done, we'll come home. So it'll probably be like 11:30 that we'll be done. So 12 o'clock rolls around, and he's not home. And I got all my prep work done for Christmas night, and the presents were already wrapped because I did that while they were at school. And it was kind of awesome. I was like, wait a minute. They're not home yet. They should be home any minute. So I called him. I'm like, hey, are you guys coming home soon? He's like, yeah, about that. So we're not quite done. So I went ahead and took the kids to lunch. So, and I did promise the kids that once we're finished, we might go bowling. And so we just have a couple more stops after lunch. Actually, just one more store after lunch. And then I'm gonna take the kids bowling on Christmas Eve in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what time will we be home? And he's like, well, we're supposed to be at my parents at 6, right? And I said, yes. He's like, so we'll be home by 5 so we can wrap the presents quickly and then go to my parents. I'm like, sounds great. My friends, I had the rest of the day to myself. And it was awesome. So the next year, he's like, I know it hurt your feelings last year. I tried doing better, but it's been really stressful and hectic. I'm like, no, do what you did last year. It was fine. He's like, really? You're okay with that? He's like, because I actually had a really fun time with the kids. I'm like, yes, spend the day, right? So ever since then, that is a Christmas Eve tradition for our family is unless there's something specific that I want, and there's not a lot of things that I need. Usually I need new kitchen scissors because for some reason my family uses our kitchen scissors for everything and they end up breaking by the end of the year. So every year I get kitchen scissors because they're always broken by the end of the year. And so and inevitably I always get lotion too that I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is a regift. But there's a few things that they'll get me that they know that like simple things. I don't ask for a lot. I don't need a lot. I'm a pretty simple person. I'm easily pleased. I don't ask for a lot. So he knows if there's something that I need, I'll say, hey, I ordered it off Amazon. You just wrap it. Okay. Or there's been times when he knows I really, really want something that he's surprised me with it. But so I don't want you to think my husband is a jerk because he's not at all. But it became a tradition that it was born out of some amount of sadness for my heart at the beginning, but has become a fun thing for my kids to do with my husband is to spend Christmas Eve, as long as it's not on Sunday, because we don't shop on Sundays, but so they'll go Saturday. Like this year, they're going to go on Saturday. And the day it's my day to be by myself and to think and contemplate, maybe take a bath or I always go on a walk, or do whatever I want, read a book or watch a Bonnet movie, which is like a historical period drama, which my husband calls Bonnet porn because I'm addicted to it when I have the opportunity to watch historical dramas. Granted, there's no pornography in them at all, the ones that I watch anyway, but it gives me a chance to watch some Bonnet movies by myself without anyone around, without any kids climbing on me. So that's another fun tradition that we've done. One thing that I started last year, and I shared this in another podcast with the Read Aloud. My ideal Christmas is every night reading something as a family, which I shared that in the Read Aloud podcast, where for my dear friend, when her husband was deployed, we gave her, right before he's deploying after Christmas, we gave her a big basket of books that they could read and poetry that was Christmas stories. Now, if you're of a different faith, same principle, like books and stories that reiterate your faith and your faith traditions. And she'd read aloud just a little bit every night. If there wasn't a lot of time, they'd read for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or read a poem. That early on, one of the coolest wedding gifts I ever got was a Christmas treasury. They had photocopied a bunch of Christmas stories. They weren't great Christmas stories, so I changed them out for actual books that I really enjoyed in Christmas stories. But I was trying to remember where I'd gotten that idea to give to her. And that's initially where it was in the back of my head it was a wedding gift to us. The person knew that I had children. I was taking on these 2 boys and becoming an instant mom. And so she gave us this binder of 25 days of Christmas. And every day from December 1st, you read a story with your family. So we started doing that last year and it became beautiful. And now when I think of like, if I have to choose what I'm going to do, if I'm going to have to choose between gingerbread house making and going to see lights and going and doing all the stuff, I'm going to choose reading with my kids each night a little bit and then culminating in Luke 2 on Christmas Eve. and then we reread it on Christmas morning. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I want the time that's beautiful and not rushed and not stressful. And I've worked really hard to eliminate all the other fluff that's unnecessary. I've eliminated, even this year, like going back to that, like we have to make room for mental white space and we have to say no more than we say yes. This year, my husband has always been in all these real estate groups and invited to all these real estate things. He's a very good agent in our state and does very well in real estate. And so he's been invited to all these groups and all these Christmas parties and all these things. And we finally were like, and we're done. If I'm going to spend the time, I want to spend it with my family. I want to spend it with my kids. I don't want to spend it with a bunch of real estate agents that I don't really care about. I'm sure they're nice people, but I'm going to be with my family. I'm going to eliminate the unnecessary parties that don't bring me joy and fill it with time with people that I legitimately do care about. I do love going to like our church Christmas party. That's something that I love. I love those people so much. I love my congregation so much. I love that community so much. And so that's something that's very important that I spend my time doing. So my point is as you're establishing new traditions with homeschooling, in some families, they make the whole month of December, all that they do for homeschooling is surrounded by the holidays, whether, that's Christmas or Hanukkah or, or whatever religious faith tradition they are, that's all they do is that's what they spend their homeschooling time doing, is focusing on the traditions and the cultural experiences and things like that. But my point is, eliminate the unnecessary extra stuff and extra things that don't bring you joy in your time, and fill it with the things that matter, the rituals that legitimately matter, that legitimately would fill your soul. Again, for me, talking for 2 hours over Christmas dinner while we wait for our food to cook on the raclette matters. It was so beautiful last year. It was such a fun, and the giggles and the joy and there was a little bit of fighting here and there, but mostly joy was awesome. And letting go of the things that don't matter and creating that white space becomes so important during this season, which can get really overwhelming really fast. So that's my challenge for you this week, is decide what are the most important things this month and get rid of the stuff that's not important. Get rid of the extra unnecessary fluff. Get rid of, in my case, it was getting rid of things like, I'm going to bake all night on Christmas Eve and nobody cares but me, and get rid of it. I need my sleep instead. Let go of things that are not necessary to be replaced by the very best things that really matter. So I wish you a very exciting, as we're going into the holiday season, which is meant to be fun and beautiful. I hope that you have a really good week and a Merry Christmas as we're going into the holidays, or Happy Hanukkah, or whatever faith tradition you are. I hope that the next several weeks is beautiful for you, and that you smile and relax and work out when you're going to go Christmas shopping. If you're brand new to homeschooling, you'll figure it out. I promise. You'll figure out when to wrap presents. Sometimes it's late at night and it happens. Or in my case, I made gift bags. I get to use my costume design degree at Halloween when I make costumes and when I make gift bags. So there we are. So I made my gift bags, throw the presents in, we're done. So I hope you have Merry Christmas, and we will see you next week. We've got some really cool guests that have been interviewed, and they're scheduled they'll be released soon enough, but really cool guest speakers interviews that we're going to be talking about. And with that, my friends, you're doing awesome. No, you're doing so good. And take a big deep breath and have a great week. We're going into a season that's meant to be a season of joy. So we'll see you later. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you'd like to connect with me on Instagram, you can find me at janae.daniels, and you can join our private Facebook group, School to Homeschool. Take care.